Welcome back, everybody. We're blessed to have you. On this video, we're going to be redesigning and making a new puke tank. Yes, I said redesign and make a new puke tank. For those of you all seen quite a few videos back, we actually already have a puke tank in the car, obviously. But with what we noted in the last video, with some of the rear end changes, suspension changes and stuff like that, and 4-link work that we got to do, we're actually trying to create a little bit more room above the rear end. So we're going to be removing our old puke tank, and we got a perfect location for this new one, and we're going to show you that. But before we get to that, for those of you who are new to the channel, we ask that you consider subscribing, and you like the video, you share the channel, and you hit that little notification button. So this video, like I had stated, we're going to be putting a new puke tank in the car. Right now we have the old puke tank mounted above the rear end, up in there, tucked in pretty nice, kind of out of the way, but we're just trying to free up some room up there. And virtually the only thing that we're going to use from that old puke tank is the breather tube and then the 2 inlet tubes, and then we'll probably pull out the drain plug out of that one as well and then put it into the new one. So we have over here our new material, and I've actually already got it marked up for the first cut here. And the brakes, this is going to be on the front and back side. So we kind of made a little bit of a pattern here, and there's multiple different ways to do this. Obviously it just kind of what suits your setup, but it's going to be actually a little bit smaller than this. I think we're setting at about probably, I don't know, 3.5 4 gallons potentially here. But the aluminum that we're going to be utilizing is 6061 090. Hopefully that's going to be sufficient enough. But our goal here is to, and we'll bring down the car here in a second and kind of show you where that location is going to be. But here's kind of the design. Obviously, depending on your car and your setup, it could be a little bit different. But the way we're going to try it, and hopefully it works out the way we have it all set up, is this kind of sets to the driver's side. In the trunk, we're going to have 2 baffles in here, probably one somewhere in this general location and one a little bit higher. And then we're going to throw the breather tubes in, which when I bring the car down, we'll kind of show you where those inlet tubes are going to go, and then how we're going to set up the breather tube. We're actually going to bring it from the bottom because I don't want anything sticking out the top of the trunk. So we're going to bring it down out of the bottom of the car. So we'll bring it up to about 1 inch away from the top here, so it allows it and has that opportunity to actually flow and breathe down and out of the car. We're going to bring the tubes in just above that bottom baffle and kind of face them down. So our goal is that it'll circulate that air up and out and down the tube, the breather tube there, if you will. So and then once again, I'll show you kind of where those inlet tubes are going to come from, those top frame rails and down and into the tank. So yeah, we'll have the 2 baffles there, and then the breather tube and the inlet tubes, and I'll kind of show once again kind of how we're going to set that up. But yeah, so we're going to get to work. We're going to start cutting this guy out, and then we're going to do the brakes, and then we'll probably go ahead and cut the 2 side panels out of it for both sides, and then we'll make the baffles, and I'll kind of talk through a little bit of how we're going to set up the baffles for best case scenario, we hope. And then get the brackets and everything cut out, and then we'll probably remove the old puke tank and start cutting the tubes, the inlet tubes and the breather tube off of that to get it set up for this one. So let's go ahead and bring down the car, and once we get the car down here, we'll kind of show you how we're gonna set it up inside the car. So this is where we're going to be mounting the new puke tank, just directly across from the battery. So it's going to be a similar shape, look kind of similar to from the top, so it'll all kind of look uniform in here, if you will. But this is where the puke tank's going to mount, and as you can see, we had that break in that puke tank because of the trunk pan itself. So it's going to kind of come in here and dive down, but we're going to utilize these mounts that we already have in here to actually mount it in and bolt it up. And then our goal is to exit the breather tube just straight out the bottom of the trunk pan here. And then we're hoping that we can set up these inlet tubes kind of to come up here and into the puke tank. We'll have a couple holes here that will drill through the pan, and then seal all that off, obviously, and then have those kind of dive up into the pan and then face it direct back down, right above that bottom baffle, so we can have that flow out through those breather tubes. We do have a weight bar kind of located in this general location underneath, some brackets there for a weight bar if need be. So we're just gonna have to configure that up a little bit, make sure that everything's kosher, make sure everything fits properly there. So we're gonna kind of play that by ear and probably do that kind of last, but we're just gonna ensure, obviously, that if that's not gonna work, that we have other options to bring those inlet tubes into the tank itself. So that's the plan here. It's nice we got this room that we can put this tank here and remove that old one. I think it's going to be pretty nice because it actually gives us an opportunity to actually add weight to the car, because we got some old brackets in there for the old tank. So if we need to add weight there, we can do that. Not to say that we ever will need to, but if need be, we got brackets in there and we could build something or make something, modify something up to actually add weight to the car if needed. So we got that additional option there, which is nice. But yeah, we're gonna start making this thing. We're gonna try to make it look as nice as it can and fit as uniform as possible, and just make it as pretty as possible as well. But obviously, number one, most important, that it's functional and everything's set up the way that it needs to be. So we're gonna take you along the journey. We hope you all enjoy. Please stay tuned, see how this thing turns out, and we'll kind of talk you through a couple things as we progress through this process. So we went ahead and we went ahead and broke everything over, as y'all saw, and then we tacked it up and actually went ahead and cut it off to fit the trunk pan there. So we'll actually go ahead and slide it in there, kind of give you guys a look of what it's gonna look like. It's gonna look very similar to the battery from the top. Should slide down in there pretty easy, kind of set in there somewhat like that. So real clean, you won't even really tell unless you actually know what it is, but that's virtually what it's going to kind of look like from the top. So what we're going to do now is I'm going to go ahead and finish weld it shut, and then we'll probably start to work on the sides next, and then next we'll roll into the baffles and start getting some stuff welded up. And once we get those baffles welded, we can put the inlet tubes and the breather tube, and then put the two sides on, get the brackets on, clean everything up, and should be pretty close to being done. So we're gonna get to work on welding this thing up closed, and then make the sides for both open sides for now. All right, here we go. We got all our pieces cut. Got our two side pieces here. This one's broke over. We got that fit up. And then the other side piece for this side. And then we got our two baffles. We're gonna put one baffle, kind of marked it out here, kind of in this area. And then we're gonna get another baffle up high here And but before we get to that, we're actually going to go ahead and put the breather tube, the vent tube, whatever you want to consider it. We're going to go ahead and drill that hole. We're going to kind of offset this a little bit. Reason being is because we're not 100% sure how we're going to be bringing in those inlet tubes. We know whereabouts we're going to be bringing them in. Obviously, it's going to come in kind of through the bottom here, and we're going to take that tube up as high as we can and then dump it back down. And we're not sure if we're going to be able to dump it here, if we're going to have to come to the other side. So thus putting it in the center, it gives us kind of either option, so we continue to have that flow, airflow, if you will, either side we decide to put them. So what we're going to do now is we're going to go ahead and get that hole drilled, and then we'll touch base again, and we'll show you kind of how we're going to set up these baffles and where we're going to drill the holes and whatnot. And then hopefully before too long, we'll have to get those other inlet tubes out of that other tank to put into here. But hopefully before too long, we can get these side pieces on and get this thing closed up. So we're going to go ahead and get this hole drilled. Alright, so we're not actually going to mark out all the holes just because we went ahead and nail set where we're going to start with our first holes. And then we're going to kind of work out from out here after we see what these are going to look like. We're going to cut these in 3/4 inch, with a 3/4 inch hole saw. And then we might go a little bit smaller depending on the room that we have out here after we do that. And then we're just going to overlay it onto this one. Do virtually the same pattern, and then add a few more over here. The only thing that I really want to note though is you want to ensure that you cut these corners off, because obviously if fluid's coming in here, it's going to work itself to the corners of the tank itself. So it gives it an opportunity to actually kind of flow through there a little bit better. So those corners need to be cut out on all the baffles. So I'll probably do that at the end, but either way, we're going to get to cutting the holes out of these things. So here's the two baffles. Really just kind of want to show you how we set it up. Hopefully this is sufficient. Hopefully it's enough holes. Hopefully it's not too many holes, but it's kind of where we're at with them. The only thing that we really focused on, I mean, you could virtually just drill the holes kind of where you want and you should be fine. But the only thing that we did pay attention to was we didn't want the holes lined up directly over another hole. So we kind of try to offset them a little bit the best we could. So that way, you know, whatever is flowing there has the opportunity to be stopped, and there is no chance of it being directly above and actually being able to exit through both of them. So kind of offset them a little bit, which really at the end of the day, that pressure is going to be flowing around in there anyway, so it shouldn't matter. But just kind of one of the things that we paid attention to a little bit there. Other than that, as a reminder, just ensuring that you cut the corners off, because that pressure is going to want to work its way to the edge of the tank, and it's kind of where it's going to move and rotate and flow through. So you want to ensure that that has that opportunity to do that, so cutting those edges off. But either way, we're going to probably roll on to eventually tacking these things in, get them welded up. Not going to put much of a weld on them, just want to ensure that they stay in there. And then next, probably going to be getting that old tank out so we can get some of those inlet tubes, those two inlet tubes ready to go. So I'm going to go ahead and probably put these things in and roll on to the next. Here here it is with the baffles in. So we got those welded in. I do have the breather tube in there as well. We actually have to make this a little bit longer because it's got to be about, like we had noted, about an inch from the top of the tank. So I got a couple extra pieces. Unfortunately, it's been cut, and I don't know, I just have to piece them together and make that work. But we're gonna go ahead and put this side on, and then we'll probably go ahead once again, get that other tank out, get all that tubing and everything ready to go, and extend this, weld this in, and then we'll close her on up. But there's what it looks like with the baffles in it. Here it is with the baffles in it, and then we got this side all done, welded on. Just got the other side to put on, but obviously first we got to get the inlet tubes. So what we're thinking right now is we're going to kind of run these probably something like this. Obviously it's going to look a little bit different when they're cut down, but something along those lines, kind of coming up to the top a little bit there, and then bringing back down over this side of the baffle. We just, as you can see here, this radius is just not tight enough to make that bend and have it exit like right here. So we're gonna have to bring it over here to this baffle, and we're gonna go ahead and actually add a couple holes here, one here, and then one here as well. So that way, when this inlet tube, when it exits its inlet tube, has the opportunity to flow through instead of just splatter and disperse everywhere. That's obviously the point of the baffles. So yeah, we're gonna try it out, and we're gonna try to run them over here. I know I've said this like 3 times now, but our next step is getting the old tank out and getting some material off of that that we're gonna utilize to add onto this breather tube, so we don't have to get more material there, and then the extra breather tube here, and then we got some material that we're going to utilize from the old inlets as well, and then pull that drain plug off. So we're going to get to work on removing that tank, and then go ahead and drill the holes, get everything set up for the inlets. So we went ahead, drilled the holes for the inlets here through the trunk pan, and we marked it on the bottom of the tank, and kind of see there, got 2 marks. These holes are going to be a little bit smaller than what's coming through the trunk pan, just because we're going to try and seal that up with the rubber that comes in. So we're going to have those inlet tubes come through, stick through the trunk pan just a little bit here, and then we'll 90 it up with a rubber elbow that goes up to the frame rails, and then we'll have that PVC flex tubing that goes all the way up there and taps into those and ties in. So we're gonna go ahead and start drilling out with the hole saw on the tank, and then get the tubes in there and get those welded up and put on. All right, I didn't video any of that, apologize, but either way, we went ahead and got the holes cut in the tank, and went ahead and cut the I guess a portion of the inlet off, which is going to stick through here. Our goal is to keep it parallel with the pan rather than the tank. Just reason being is because you'll never see these on the bottom of the tank, so we'd rather have them parallel with the pan itself, so when it's coming out, nobody probably ever see it. But either way, want to make it as clean as possible. So went ahead and cut those 2 ends off, and one of the things that we're dealing with is obviously we don't have a bender here, but we do have some tubing that is bent. So instead of waiting to find a bender and get that done, we're going to compromise, and we're just going to put these together and make it work within the tank. Just weld them together, piece them together, and then slide that up in there and weld it on. So there's wanted to take a quick pause here. Here's the tubes from the inside. So obviously ran from the out all the way in and over. Wanted these to actually tail down a little bit further to that baffle, but it is what it is. That's what we had. That's the material that we had when we were working with. So that's where they're at, and I think it should disperse just fine, but either way, we'll find out. I also failed to mention earlier that we actually had to cut this piece out and patch it in here just due to the fact that it was touching that trunk pan. So I just cut that out and added a piece in there. Might end up having to grind this down because it's still getting pretty close to that trunk pan, but I wanted to give you guys a look at all this prior to closing it on up. So we're going to close it up. We're going to put the other two brackets on, and then we're gonna get this tube made, and we got something else we're actually gonna add to this tube as well prior to welding this in. And Dad's working on that right now, and we'll show you what that is once we get it cut out and ready to go. But other than that, we're getting really close. And I don't know if we're gonna go through the whole sequence of showing you guys us cleaning this up and the final product. We will at some point, but I don't know if it'll be in this video. So we're gonna get to closing this thing up. All right, so we're gonna wrap this video up. We have finalized the tank. There are a couple adjustments that we're gonna be doing in the future, but the tank is pretty well complete. It's usable. It will work as we speak, as it sits. We are gonna make it a little bit prettier here in the future as well, but right now it's not a priority. So as is, it's sitting in the car. Like I said, it's usable. We got all the brackets on. We got all the breather tubes, the inlet tubes, all that's complete and finalized. We are going to be making potentially one adjustment to the inlet tubes down here. So you can see here, we've got all the lines ran to it. They're hanging down right now. So usually they're a lot tighter up in there, but not extremely fond of these rubber 90s. So what we might end up doing is cutting back those inlets just a little bit and actually putting a thread on there. So we have threaded fittings that'll go up to it, which will make it a lot nicer and a lot more rigid. And so that's kind of our route. We're gonna see if we can find something, some threads, some fittings that will work for all that, and then work for our tubing as well. Like I said, it's all hanging down right now, but we have had it ran. Down here on the bottom, you can see here is the breather tube. This is the exit. We got to clean this up a little bit, but that's what it looks like from the bottom of the car. So that's where that's at. And then last but not least, this is what it looks like on the inside of the car for that breather tube. So what we've done is we put like a little stop on there, and then you can see there's a rubber seal, if you will, down at the bottom of it. So when you actually put this tank in, you just drop it down till that ring actually touches the bottom of the trunk pan, and then once we get it there, then the brackets and the mounting holes mount up perfectly to the pre-existing brackets that we already had in there. So it slides in super easy, super nice, and it comes in and out very quickly. But either way, looks pretty good. Can't really tell honestly what it is. And you know, this is what worked for us. This is the room that we had available in the car for the new tank. And I'm hopefully this video, if you're looking or you're in the process of building an overflow tank of your own or a PUKE tank, then you can kind of utilize this. This setup might not work exactly for you, but you got the opportunity to kind of see the baffles that we put in here and the inlet tubes, the breathers, and all that stuff. Hopefully it works out. We think that it should. We'll see once we get the opportunity to start testing this thing. But yeah, so that's the conclusion on that. Got to do a couple of other things to it. Like I said, it's not a priority for us right now. As you can see, the rear end is out of the car. As we noted in a previous video, we got some work on this thing to get it up and rocking and rolling for this year. So we got the rear end out and the old 4-link brackets cut out. Currently, we're waiting on the new rear end and we're waiting on the new brackets. So once we get those in, we'll start welding them all up, getting everything fit up, getting ride height. We also got the adjustable strut cups for the front. Currently, we are probably going to be holding off on the header work just because of time. As most of y'all know, just had a newborn, so you know, getting the opportunity to work on this regularly can be a little bit tough. So, you know, season's right around the corner. So we're gonna see what happens. And you know, if it doesn't work out mid-season, then maybe we'll have to, or the start of the season, maybe we'll have to make some adjustments in and there. So we'll see. We're gonna play it by ear, but that's kind of our priority: is this rear end, the 4-link brackets, and then the adjustable strut cups in the front, and then we'll make any adjustments that we need to this PUKE tank. Right now it'll work fine, but we are planning on making just a couple adjustments to it. But either way, here in the next video, what we're hoping for, we're excited. We got a couple extra projects, couple more projects in store, and we're excited to bring it all to y'all. And here in the next video, we're probably going to roll out what those projects are going to be and what we got in the future. Obviously, you know, our biggest goal right now is to get this thing out there and start playing with it, testing it, and having some fun. So, but we're excited also to bring you the new stuff. So that's kind of where we're at right now. And we hope this video can help you out if y'all are in the process or you're building something similar. If you got any questions, feel free to reach out, put it in the comment section down below. Let us know what y'all think. If you have any words of advice, we greatly appreciate all that as well. And then, yeah, we'll be looking forward to seeing you on the next one. Don't forget to subscribe. Consider subscribing. Like the video. Share the channel. We also just rolled out a new TikTok. So we'll be putting some clips on there every so often when we get the opportunity. And, yeah, we're blessed to have you all and looking forward to seeing you on the next one. So, God bless.